Hey everyone, in this video we are looking at the next data type called as an array. So now what are arrays? Arrays are basically ordered integer indexed collection of values. Now one thing you need to keep in mind is so far while you are working with primitive data types called as number, string, boolean, undefined, so all these were basically primitive data types. So coming to arrays, array is basically a non-primitive data type. So the other name for non-primitive data type are object data type or reference data type. So arrays are object data types, so it is not a primitive data type. That means to say arrays have properties and methods, and we can use arrays by implementing properties and methods upon them. So now let's look at the definition of an array. I am creating a new file and calling it as array.js. So what is the definition of an array? Array is an ordered integer indexed collection of values. Here let's say I want to save names of few people, few names of famous cricketers. Let's say Virat, Dhoni, Sachin, Rohit. So I'm just saving them as strings. I can create variables, 4 different variables called as where player1 is equal to Sachin, where player 2 is equal to Dhoni, where player 3 is equal to Sachin, player 3 is Virat, and where player 4 is equal to Rohit. So I'm creating 4 different variables called as player 1, player 2, player 3, player 4, and assigning 4 team players, cricketers names as values to those variables. So as you can see here, I'm using multiple variables just to store those 4 variable names which are strings. Now let's again look at the definition of an array. An array is basically collection of values. So now what I can do an array called as players. So instead of creating 4 different variables, I can store all those 4 values inside a single variable called as players. So I'm creating a variable called as players where players is equal to, an array is having opening and closing square brackets. Because it's a collection of values, I can save those 4 strings inside those brackets as a collection inside a single variable called as players. So instead of writing in different variables, I am assigning those 4 strings inside a single variable called as players. Dhoni, Virat, Rohit. So we do not use multiple variables to store information, but I just create a single one called as players whose value is an array. So array, the syntax of array is inside opening and closing square brackets, and the values are separated by a comma. So this is how an array look like. So array is nothing but a collection of values. So it also says arrays are ordered. So the definition also says array is an ordered. So whenever I ask for this players array, whatever, so I'm deleting this, we don't need this anymore. So whatever order we have inserted them, the output will be the same order. It is as simple as that. What is meant by ordered, you can ask me. So whatever we have given as input, the output is also the same. The output does not change when we execute the file. So that's what ordered means. So if I say I'm just saving this file and I'm giving console.log of players, I'm saving this file, going to my terminal and executing this piece of code, node array.js. So this is inside data types, right? cd space data types node array.js. So you can see, right, the order does not change. Here it is in the order of Sachin, Dhoni, Virat and Rohit, and the output is also in the same order. So that's what ordered means. So that's what ordered means. It is collection of values. Basically you already know that what is a collection of values. So we are storing different values inside a single storage space called as an array inside opening and closing square brackets. So that's what collection means. I'm just breaking down the definition of array. Okay, we know what is ordered, we know what is collection of values. Next coming to integer indexed. So arrays are basically integer indexed. So that means to say, using the index of an array, you need to keep in mind that arrays starts at 0 index. So for Sachin it's 0, for Dhoni it's 1, for Virat it's 2, and for Rohit it's 3. So array index always starts at 0, and arrays are integer indexed. 0, 1, 2, 3 are integers, right? So it is called as integer indexed collection of values. So if I want to reference to Sachin or access Sachin from the array, let's see what I say. So console.log of players. If I want to print only Sachin from the array, how to do that? So players of 0. Since Sachin is at 0 index, right? So I'm just printing 0. It is opening and closing square brackets to refer to that particular index from the array. And I'm just saving this file, and I'm going back to my terminal and executing this piece of code. This is just for our reference, right? So I'm just ignoring this. Okay, I'm just saving this file and I'm running this piece of code. So it says Sachin is printed for this. Now let's say I want Rohit. So what is the index value of Rohit? It's 3, right? Players of 3. I'm saving this file, executing this piece of code. It says Rohit. If I want Dhoni, players of, you already know what is the answer. The answer is 1. Players of 1. I'm saving this file and executing this. It says Dhoni. Sorry, we have given 2 square brackets, which is not required. So we just need to give 1. So this is how we access each and every element in the array via its index. Hence it is called as integer indexed collection of values. You always remember that that last index of the array is length minus 1. So what is the length of this particular array? Length is 4, right? How many elements are there? There are 4 elements. So the length is 4, right? And the last index of the array is length minus 1. So here 3. 4 minus 1 is 3, right? So because, what is the reason behind it? Because the array indexing starts at 0, the last element in the array is always length minus 1. The index of the last element in the array is always length minus 1. Here the length is 4 and the last element index is 3. That's the point you have to remember. So the last index is always length minus 1. That's it. So when I run this particular file, you can see that you are able to access each element in that array. Now what happens if you try to access an array? Now I'm trying to access an array. There is no value at fourth index. So there is no value at 4th index, and see what happens if we try to access the value at 4th index. Players of 4. So there is no 4 here, right? There is the array indexing ends at 3. So it says undefined. So when I do that, it will come back and return undefined. Another use case of where undefined is used. So previous section, if you remember, we have seen different use cases of undefined. First one is where the value is not assigned to any variable, it is printing undefined. So if we do that, where players 1, so console.log of players 1. I'm just showing the use cases of undefined, which is revised in last section, so I'm just revising that. So in this case it says undefined. This is the first use case. Second use case is if a function does not have a return keyword. So if a function does not, if a function is missing return keyword, in this case as well it says undefined. In this case as well it says undefined. And the third use case is when we are trying to access an index which is outside the scope of an array, or which is outside the length of an array. So then also it is going to return undefined. So now the conclusion is array is ordered integer indexed collection of values. So ordered means whenever I am creating an array and I query for an array, it is always returning the same order. The order does not change. That is what ordered means. Array is integer indexed. Each element in the array can be accessed via its index, and the index always starts at 0. So that is what integer indexed means. And finally, it is nothing but a collection of different values. So instead of creating different variable names or multiple variables, we create a single variable called as players, and we are assigning all those values as a collection of values inside opening and closing square brackets. So that's the exact definition of what an array is. So as I already mentioned, it is integer indexed, means 0 gives me, here 0 gives me Sachin, 1 gives me Dhoni, 2 gives me Virat, and 3 gives me Rohit. And if I am trying to access something which is outside the scope of an array, let's say 4 or 5 or and so on, so it says undefined. So that is another use case of undefined. And if I am working with other languages, C++ or Java, if we try to access an index which is not available within the scope of an array, it will raise an exception called array out of bound exception. So it is an error. It throws basically the other languages like C, C++, Java, or you name it. So they throw an exception called as array out of bound exception. But JavaScript is, very modern language, and it just raises undefined. So I'll see you in the next class. Thank you.